Welcome in again to our freight conversation. And this week we have a great guest to look forward to some great answers with. Ryan Schreiber joining us from Metafora, joining us on location. Ryan, how you doing?
I usually am joining from location, yeah. But this location, beautiful Las Vegas. So I'm down a lot. I don't know. At some point, somebody might come and grab me and try and break my kneecaps. But otherwise, so if that happens, maybe cut that out in post. But otherwise, I'm doing pretty well. Thanks, man. Good to see you again.
Oh, I'm keeping that in there. Absolutely. Let's go ahead here. Obviously. Yeah. So last week, excuse me, we had Ann Rinke on, president of TIA, and you know how this works. So she posed an idea, and here's what she said.
Well, I think a couple things. So we talk about the security of freight. We talk about collaborating on freight. We have some bad actors in our freight space that are frauds or commit fraud or are committing double brokering or committing, they're dispatch agents who are essentially brokering freight. And will the railroads care? No, probably not. But certainly the carriers will care and the shippers will care about how we can actually improve that. We have a regulatory agency that's constrained in its resources, and they think in its authority to regulate that space because these are commercial events, not safety events. We would argue that these actually are safety and security events. We had a member who arranged transportation for a load of meat 2 weeks ago. Turned out it was to a fraudulent carrier who gave it to a dispatch service out of some other country. Long story short, we don't know where this meat is. So my point is there is fraud in that market. How can we figure out in the marketplace, how can we figure out ways if we can't get FMCSA because of constrained resources to be engaged, what can we do together to collaborate? And I think there's interest there. Certainly we've talked to some in the owner operator space. I think there's some interest there of how do we actually work together to figure out solutions?
So with that, bad actors at play, how do you deal with it? Big question. What's your take?
It's interesting. It's something that I'm actually super, super passionate about. So as you know, as most people know, my background is as an attorney. Like I don't practice, but it's something I'm really passionate about. So in the industry, carrier compliance and onboarding and monitoring carriers, et cetera, is really, really important. And everything that Ann said is true, right? We have major issues at the legislative level, at the administrative agency level with the DOT, the FMCSA, and Congress. Funding is an issue, et cetera. So, we're not going to solve fragmentation. So, let's kind of take some of the things off the table. Sure. If there was consolidation, that would be helpful, but it's not going to go that way. Additionally, the FMCSA is not likely to get additional funding in ways that would allow technology to solve the problem directly. So there systemically is not going to be major change that's going to save the day. So realistically, as you kind of look at the ecosystem that we have, right, where we are, the players that we have involved, et cetera, we need to really consider how we're leveraging data to make better decisions at the organizational level. And I think there's a couple of ways in which we need to think about that. Number one, what's going to be really, really important is, and this is starting to happen. I'm glad it's starting to happen because for the longest time it wasn't happening, but companies are thinking differently about data and understanding that all data is not created equal, right, Bill? Like some data has much more value to you by keeping it hidden, and other data points are much more valuable when they're exposed to the market and they can be anonymized and aggregated and we can learn from them, right? So there's a couple of those things that are in play. So number one, that trend needs to continue and accelerate. We need trucking companies, we need brokerages to be able to contribute data to products, to consortiums, to whatever it might be that's going to help us track and identify carriers and bad actors, right? And so that's going to be really, really important, because what that'll allow us then to do is to apply next generation technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, to identify patterns, that we can then leverage to make better decisions, and the like. And so it becomes less of an issue of, kind of figure it out within the four walls of your business, and a little bit more collaborative, but not collaborative, right, in a I don't get get without giving, or kind of pure altruism. Like, it's going to be, it's also not going to be like a band all together and create a coalition to fight. It's just that's not how people act and operate. And so there's technology right now that's working on solving this problem. Carrier 411 had tools that were really valuable. That product hasn't kind of evolved over time. RMIS, same concept. So you're seeing entrants come into that market that are trying to work on this problem. You have Carrier Assure by Cassandra Gaines. You have Highway with Jordan Graft that are working on taking a lot of this information in and then not just presenting it to a user, but but creating an environment where you're assisting folks in making better decisions by synthesizing that data and being able to do it. So I think that it is a great question. It's something I'm very passionate about. It's an incredibly complicated problem to solve, but it absolutely has to start with data, and it has to start with assisting the users in making those better choices, not tasking them with deciding, to read a Freight Guard report and then make a choice.
All right. Well, Ryan, time now for you to kind of direct the conversation whichever way you want to take it. Let's say you're in a room with everybody in freight. You are at the podium. Where would you like the conversation to go?
Well, you and I covered a lot. So, as we often
yes, but
do,
we also scratched the surface too. I mean, there's a whole lot more we didn't talk about.
I would really love to. I'm going to go back to talking about autonomous vehicles because I don't think that we talk about it enough. I think that often the conversation around autonomous vehicles just centers on sort of extremes of the conversation. Oh, they're going to take everybody's jobs, like it's right around the corner, or it's never going to happen. And so I think there's a middle, right? And I find myself in the middle, which is I'm bullish on it. I think it's really important, and I think we need to figure it out. And also, there are very real challenges to where it is today. So I'd love the next person to start by talking about, what, starting from kind of like a growth mindset perspective of, okay, everything's a problem to solve. Like, what are some of the major problems that we need to solve for right now that can help make meaningful progress on autonomy, not from a technological perspective, because the technology is pretty good, not from a technology perspective, but from a change management perspective. What do we need to do to change people's behavior? How do we change people's behavior? How do we change people's thought process around autonomous vehicles to drive a better, safer environment on the road for the professional drivers, and to protect the professional drivers from four-wheelers who are trying to kill themselves and kill other people. So I'd love to hear somebody talk a little bit more about that, because I think that conversation could use some more attention.
Ryan Schreiber of Metaphora, thanks so much for joining us on our Freight Conversation.
Thanks so much for having me, Bill.
And you can hear the entire conversation with Ryan Schreiber of Metaphora on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/freightwaves. Ryan also talks about the development of freight tech and where we are now and where we're going, and what we might need to leave behind, unfortunately. That's the Freight Conversation, of course, with Ryan Schreiber, available on youtube.com/freightwaves. Hit that like and subscribe button, folks. But speaking of liking and subscribing, I have to subscribe to this quick break, and then we're going to have a final look at our carrier as well as headlines. Hang in there.